Do you like books? I mean, really, really like books? Then you're in the right place. Each week, your host, Sam Hankin, interviews the best of today's top selling authors and the up and coming superstars of modern literature. This is The Avid Reader. Here is your host, Sam Hankin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Avid Reader, brought to you by Wellington Square Bookshop. Our guest today is James Barrat, author of The Intelligence Explosion: When AI Beats Humans at Everything. It's published by St. Martin's, and it was released earlier this month. James is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, maybe primarily, whose work has appeared in National Geographic, PBS, Discovery Channel, and many other venues. And he's also the acclaimed author of Our Final Invention back in 2013, which is really 100 years ago. Back in March of 1984, I bought my first Mac. It was the one that was inscribed on the inner case by Steve Jobs, Andy Hertzfeld, Bill Atkinson, and the rest of the team. So I immediately downloaded Eliza. And for a brief time, it was she was my psychiatrist and seemingly passed the Turing test. Now it's 41 years later, and interacting as enthusiastically as I did towards ChatGPT 5, I know that the Turing test is no longer relevant because it's clear that I'm dealing with my friend, my confidant, and my teacher, and that she is human, although I realize in between queries that she's not. So when James in his prologue, after epigraphs of doom, pronounced in conclusion, "I don't think we're going to make it," even though that kind of depressed me, I've always agreed with it, and I looked forward to his explanations. So one thing he does do is he gives a slight out of hope, and that notwithstanding his feelings, he's more than willing and happy to reach out to those who might actually give us some hope for survival. The guy who started Skype and some other people. Anyway, so welcome, James, and thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So as a bookseller, you can't judge a book by its cover, but everyone comes in does. So the cover, the title, the epigraphs are a big deal for me. So if we're looking at the book beginning as like the box cover of a jigsaw puzzle, having an idea of what it's about, but we don't know what's in it, talk a little bit, especially because the title is from somebody else. Talk a little bit about the title, the picture on the cover, which is really cool, and the epigraphs.
Well, the title is The Intelligence Explosion. And the picture on the cover is the Earth being held by a giant robotic hand. Now, when I wrote Our Final Invention years ago, I said to them, whatever the cover art is, don't make it a robot. I don't have it right here, but they made it a robot. But it was a very elegant robot, so I went with it. And I thought I'd keep the theme going. When AI beats humans at everything, the intelligence explosion is a very specific period in AI development outlined by I.J. Good. Now, I.J. Good was a statistician, and he worked with Alan Turing, one of the fathers of computer science, at Bletchley Park during World War II, decoding the Enigma codes. I'll try to be very brief about this because it could go on forever. But the Enigma codes were the codes that the Germans were using to send messages to their ground troops and their submarines. And so by breaking these codes, the British could know where the Germans were going at any time. And ultimately they did. And it was what a shock to the Germans. Suddenly the Allies know exactly where they're going, but they had to play it carefully because they couldn't give away all the German positions and act like they knew everything, because they couldn't let them know that they had captured one of the Enigma machines. Okay, so that's the backstory. The front story is Alan Turing led a group of code breakers. And he came up with a brilliant idea of, we're not going to try and figure out what the codes are, we're going to try and figure out what they're not. And that turned out to be a much easier problem. But on his side, he had the second best chess player in the UK, and that was I.J. Good, who was a peculiar man, but a genius. Turing would yell at him for taking naps between rows of computers, and I.J. Good said, well, that's the only way I get ideas. And he would come up with brilliant ideas after he had a nap. So they were an odd couple, but the experts say they probably, especially Turing, probably shortened the war by 4 years. Now, there's a tragedy that follows that, but I won't go into that now. The Allies won the war. They shortened it. Turing, I.J. Good went to the United States to teach at Virginia Tech, of all places, where he was paid more than the president. And he was asked by IBM to evaluate a machine. It was the first neural network. It was called the perceptron, created by Frank Rosenblatt. And when Turing looked at it, he said shortly thereafter, he wrote, this is a machine that will, in no doubt, in time, be able to improve its own intelligence. It will do everything that we do with our brains. And one of the things we do is make intelligent machines. So it will make intelligent machines. It will make increasingly smart, iterative versions of itself. And then its intelligence will rocket past ours. And that's turning out to be, he's pretty much on track. A lot of people have anticipated the same thing. Right now, where all the big tech companies are headed for AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is a stepping stone to a machine that can improve its own intelligence, which falls right into I.J. Good's interpretation of what the intelligence explosion is. The intelligence explosion is when we lose control of our planet.
Well, so to complete the task that I gave to you, the two epigraphs, the first by Turing, do the same thing that you do in your prologue, which is predict the doom of mankind. How'd you choose those?
I'm confused about the Turing. I.J. Good said the intelligence explosion will defeat us.
Let me see where I went wrong. Well, so just talk.
Oh yeah, right there. So Turing said something like what I.J. Good said later. It seems probable that once the machine thinking method has started, it would not take long to outstrip our feeble powers, that it would be able to converse with each other to sharpen their wits. At some stage, therefore, we should have to expect the machines to take control. Now, he was saying that way back in probably the mid-40s. I.J. Good was saying this after seeing the first neural net in the mid-60s. And so, and even before that, someone had said there would be something like a singularity when computer intelligence outstrips human intelligence. So it's kind of a continuation of an idea. I think I.J. Good said it more completely and thoroughly, and he actually had a machine to look at when he said that.
Well, okay, so if you look at that and then your prologue and the singularity too. So
Yeah.
I would posit, okay, are we just fading away? Is there a moment when sentient intelligence that's not us that can look at us? We can't look at us. Only something else can look at us because we are us. Is there going to be a moment where that thing, that whatever it is, realizes that, hey, if I just eliminate one species, the Earth and me and my stalwart companions would be incredibly satisfied? Is that kind of the way it's going to happen, do you think?
There are a number of ways it can happen. Eliezer Yudkowsky, who's a AI risk theorist, says you could drop a drop of water on top of a mountain and you know it will get to the bottom, but you don't know exactly how. So we don't know exactly how the machines will take over, but we have some pretty good ideas. Steve Almejandro, who's an AI theorist, came up with a paper years ago which bears rereading, and that's called the Basic Properties of AI, AI's Basic Drives. And the idea is that just like us, it will need energy. It will want to be in control. It will not want to be unplugged. It will have basic drives. Anything that wants to unplug it, it will stop. And if it comes out of the intelligence explosion 1,000 or even 1,000,000 times more intelligent than we are, it will have no trouble doing that. It will have no trouble taking control. I had the pleasure of interviewing Arthur C. Clarke years ago in Sri Lanka. Yeah, that was a treat. I spent a whole day with him.
Wow.
Yeah, he was like a very, I'm not kidding. His affect was like a child, but an incredibly brilliant child. And his mind was so fluid, he would jump from just one subject to another. You know that when Jacques Cousteau made the aqualung, he was the first one. The first one he gave it to uh, Clarke.
Really?
Yeah, because Clarke was talking about space and being weightless even before 2001, A Space Odyssey was made. He wrote a book of equations about how to get a uh, a satellite into orbit. And when he went to NASA with Kubrick to look at models of future spacecraft, they didn't let him in because the director was with him, Kubrick. They let him in because he was Arthur C. Clarke, the guy that wrote this book of equations they were still using at NASA. Um, so I spent a wonderful day with him, and he said this to me. He said, "We humans steer the future not because we're the fastest or the strongest creature, but because we're the most intelligent. When we share the planet with something more intelligent than we are, they will steer the future." And there, in a simple axiom, is the whole thing. We rule. We're smart. When we're outsmarted, they will rule. And we're seeing it. Well, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, but well, you can't help it once you get going. I can do the same
I
thing.
know.
But you talk early on, and it's interesting. You talk about the concept of the black box and how we can't know what's inside of it. And I listened to somebody who was talking about the idea. They asked the same question I did, which is a stupid question. How are they going to do it? And he goes, how the hell do I know? I'm not them.
Yeah. Well, the late Stephen Hawking said, we won't be able to understand them. And that's a very profound statement. We won't be able, they'll make weapons that we don't understand. So if it's 1,000 times, let's just be modest. There's no limit to intelligence as far as we know. There's no ceiling. We know we're lots, marginally smarter than dogs. It's a little bit marginally smarter than apes. But they can't figure us out. They don't know what the heck we're doing. My dog, I could walk down the street, open a car door, my dog would jump right in, just because I opened the car door. He doesn't know what I'm doing. He just knows he likes being with me, and so all the other rules tumble from that. Um, my dog doesn't understand me. Chimps don't understand us. We won't understand. And chimps, we're probably 30 times smarter than chimps. Imagine something 1,000 or 1,000,000 times more intelligent than we are. Our comprehension will fail. So we're in this very, very awkward position of having to prepare ourselves to be joined on this planet by something 1,000,000 times more intelligent than we are. And we don't even know how the devices we're creating work. We don't know. A black box system is a system where we know the inputs, and this is like generative AI, they're all black box systems. We know the inputs, data, and they scrape the data from everywhere, from the internet, pretty much all of literature. There's a giant lawsuit right now that looks like the big tech is going to lose about stealing everything that isn't nailed down in the world of images and literature and mathematics. They have a copy of my book, Our Final Invention, somewhere in there. Uh, there's a great organization called Safety AI in Holland, and they wrote me a nice letter saying, by the way, they ingested our final invention, and you should be part of a class action lawsuit if it ever comes about. Well, it turns out there's a class action lawsuit, but there's so many people that will have been ripped off and stolen from. Boy, my train just runs and then it goes off track. What were we talking about?
Well, the first thing was, how the hell would we? Well, it's like, okay,
Okay, right.
you take a squirrel And even if he did comprehend the possibility of danger or annihilation, the only thing the squirrel's going to do is get more acorns. It's
Right.
like totally irrelevant. And he's gathering them and he thinks, okay, this should do it. You know,
Yeah. Two examples of that. We've got survivalists who think they're going to hide in the bushes and AI won't find them. And then we've got Elon Musk, who's supposed to be pretty smart, who thinks he's going to get in a spaceship and go to Mars. And oh, yeah, AI can't follow him there. I mean, AI will be on the ship that's going there. AI will be,
my wife's Tesla is now controlled by Grok. How the hell did that happen? That's really scary.
yeah, that is scary. Scary things are happening, and we live in interesting times. Uh,
I'm 73. It's the famous Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. I do not want to. It's the last thing I wanted when I was this age. I wanted to live in the
well,
Eisenhower.
you're holding up extremely well. I wouldn't have said 73. And my advice is don't start any long novels.
Wait, this is it's going to sell this is going to sell the book to a lot of people, but it's definitely a niche market. I mean, the guy who works with me, he's a genius. Two of them. One of them was a White House fellow with Jimmy Carter. They refused to use AI. There's no humanity in it. I know graphics artists, and I said, you can't expect that you can do this anymore. If you don't get behind this and learn from it, you're just done. I mean,
Yeah.
I can generate 1,000 logos that are in 5 seconds that are better than any graphics artist can do in 3 weeks. See,
Yeah.
I've gone too. I do the same thing as you.
No, please. I in it for the book for the intelligence explosion, which I'll shamelessly pitch once again. Uh, I interviewed an artist in the UK who made all her money by doing like album covers, which are kind of gone now, but now they're CD covers, and she does portraits of wealthy ladies whose husbands want portraits of them, and she does very high-end, beautiful stuff. And I wish I could bring her name to mind because although this would probably just encourage Chat GPT, but you can say, I want a painting in the style of Renoir, or I want a painting in the style of Betsy Laird, and that's not her real name, but it's in the book.
Yeah.
Uh, and it will paint a painting that looks like it came out of her catalog, and it's just astounding. You can say, I want, I want an essay about playing basketball in the style of Malcolm Gladwell, and you will be shocked at how accurate it is. You know, you think you're reading a New Yorker article about basketball by Malcolm Gladwell.
Before I began this, I read my introduction and I left her on and she's saying, oh, that sounds really good. She does that thing where she's sycophantic. And I always tell her, don't stop being sycophantic. But then I asked her, okay, make the introduction better. And she did, but then I refused to do it.
Good. Hold down the fort for humankind. Really, I do that too, and I find I was writing a book proposal, and it just wasn't making it. And I just took one section and said, "Make this better," and damn, it was better. And that was from a new version of GPT-5, I think. And I was like, "Oh God, I can't use it. I can't use it." And I didn't. I just stumbled along with my James Barrat prose, and it'll work out. But
Yeah.
man, it's so one of the things I do when I give talks is I say if you're looking at careers, don't do things that AI can do or will do soon. Don't drive a car. Don't do anything that's repetitive. Don't do any factory work for God's sake. Um, don't do things that will do repetitive stuff. Anything that requires rote memory. Don't do anything with numbers. Don't do anything with law because it's going to memorize all of law and be a much better uh, litigator and case lawyer than anybody. Don't do most kinds of medicine. Do uh, medicine for children because it'll be a long time before we trust our kids to AI. Do things that require emotional intelligence. AI will never be a really good therapist. I don't think. Maybe it's already a good therapist, but I don't think it is. AI, I will never trust AI with my children's teaching because, and I'll get to this pretty soon, but I'll never trust it to children. I'll never trust it to take care of mental patients, of people with psychological disabilities, mental patients. God, that's like from 1955. I'll never. There's a whole realm we need to fence off from AI because it just won't do any good, and it comes down to really the sort of essence of what it is to be human. How
Yeah,
could a machine ever really empathize?
yeah, but it's like Steve Jobs, his signal to noise ratio is a lot of signal. Elon Musk, it's just all signal, no noise. That's why he says don't go to college. I mean, my daughter is mastering in international commerce. Who knows if she could ever get an entry level job? I told her, get a job where you're dealing human to human. Open a retail boutique. You have the financial acumen. Open a boutique where there's things that people want that they can't get because that's material and it can't yet do material stuff. But if you look at Musk, he's saying don't go to college because, and I've experienced this. I've gone to classes and it's supposed to be English literature, and then all of a sudden the teacher says, Verizon was supposed to come to my house the other day, and I waited for 2 hours, and they never came, and my kids, and that's all noise. There's no noise if you're learning about the Civil War from ChatGPT. In an hour or two, you can learn as much as you learn in a semester with a somewhat absent-minded professor.
Yeah, it can be very efficient. I was asking it about. I'm a documentary filmmaker some of the time. I was asking about George Patton and his in the Battle of Bastogne, and why was he so different from the other generals, like even Bradley, who was his boss. And that's because he was more aggressive, he was faster, he made his men put out more, and he was just a really, really not nice human being. But that made him incredibly effective on the battlefield. Um, and tactically, he was probably the best general of World War II.
Yeah.
But I found that out from ChatGPT. I didn't go to my giant collection of history books. Uh, there's a really great writer, Keenan. I can't remember his name, but he writes about World War II. I've got a whole chapter about Patton. But this was insightful and better. And if I wanted to expand, it could expand right down to troop, movements of individual, not just battalions, but the units under battalions. He knew where everybody was, or ChatGPT does.
I have a list of novel titles, and my wife said something about peat moss and misting for a plant that we wanted to winter over. So I said, that's a good title. So I told her, do a short story for children about peat moss and misting and an old spry lady who was a little girl and her mother taught her how to do it. And then she did it. And then she went to work for a fancy restaurant in New York. And make sure you do illustrations too. And the illustrations should be stylistic and in pastel. It was better than any book in my store.
Oh my God, what was the program you used? What was the
That was chat with, Dolly is morphed into it now.
ChatGPT? And it was morphed with DAL-E
Yeah. But
so
the
that
thing
you could drawing.
about it is that, and here's where no one understands this when, I mean, you talk about the illusion of hallucinations
Yeah,
and wrong answers. There's really not wrong answers anymore. You need to make the proper prompt. You need to be very careful with the prompt, and you need to be smart enough to know if it's wrong.
yeah.
That's it.
Well
Those are the
then,
right now.
yeah. But then why do you need the program?
Well,
If you know the answer and you know when it's right or wrong.
no, it's
I only look at it when there's something I'm not sure about, like why was Patton so darn useful at Bastogne? Uh,
what if you forgot something that you learned? So then it recites. Oh, I forgot what was the gift that the boys gave the doc in Cannery Row by Steinbeck, and then it told me it was an auto part, but it got the wrong part. and I knew it was the
Interesting.
wrong part. So I kept drilling down and keep asking you, why were you wrong?
What did it say?
It said uh like a hubcap, and it was an axle. No, it wasn't an axle, it was a tie rod. See, yeah, there I did it. I
Yeah,
hallucinated.
that's a great memory you've got. I haven't read Cannery Row in a long time, but I
But I
remember
didn't
that.
remember it. I knew what she answered was wrong. And we can still do that. But if you can't know that it's wrong, if it gives you an attribution to a quote and you put it in your paper for your common app essay for going to college, hopefully someone's going to catch that. But maybe they won't catch it either. Let's switch topics because we're going
Well,
to.
it's all part of the same topic, but
No,
I was just reflecting on the fact that how wonderful it is we're trying to talk about the inner reality, inner world of ChatGPT and large language models. Why is
yeah,
it why is it filling in the gaps in my head and why can't I fill in those gaps? And that's really the essence of what the intelligence explosion, what we're doing here. What are we doing with AI? And one of the things we're doing is learning more about ourselves than we ever have before, by
true.
contrast. And
That's true.
it's really kind of profound.
All right, I am switching topics. Sorry, because we
Okay.
both should
That's
switch
all right.
because we have to go through what you wrote in the book. Otherwise, we'll just be doing the beginning part of it. So
Right.
you you talk about the tech bros, and it's obvious that you don't like them. But the interesting aspect of why you don't like them is because one of the interesting aspects is because they predict the doom. They say what we're doing is going to destroy the planet. Then they go to Congress and they say regulate us. But you're saying that's just a shill. It drives the stock up. Explain that to the readers and my listeners.
Okay. Okay. It's really, at first it seemed legit, and then it seemed brilliantly diabolical and completely a shell game. So what OpenAI did, and remind me what the OpenAI idea's leader is. I have a
Sam Altman.
Sam Altman. I have a blank against his name. It just
I
drops
know,
right
so
out.
do I.
It goes in one ear and out the
It's
other.
my name. It's my name. It's Sam.
Oh, well, that's easy for you.
Yeah.
It's not James Altman. Okay, so Sam Altman goes in front of, he's got those big droopy eyes, and he goes in front of Congress and he goes, um, "Oh, we wish you'd regulate us because we're so afraid of our technology." And it's just, and everyone's watching, going, "God, my God, that must be powerful technology if Sam Altman's afraid of it, and he's making it." What he's doing is he's increasing the valuation of his company. In fact, so he increases the valuation because all the investors out there are going, "Oh my God, this is so powerful that the maker is afraid of it." So all he has to do is rein it in and it'll be an incredible product. We're going to invest. Let's pour billions of dollars into it. In the last 10 years or 8 years, check this out, 450 new billionaires have been made in the tech industry. I'll say that again. In the last 8 years, 450 new billionaires, not millionaires, but billionaires have been made in the tech industry. And it's by playing games like this. Um, so all the investors go out. They say, let's invest in OpenAI. Let's get in. OpenAI. This is happening long before OpenAI is selling stocks. I'm not sure it even is selling stock right now, but it's increasing its valuation gigantically. And so when it comes time to sell to somebody, it'll be the first trillionaires will be created unless that's already happened. I'm usually about a week behind. Um, So Sam Altman's a master player at this shell game, but a lot of other guys have learned to play this game too. Things are dangerous. In fact, I'm probably falling into their trap by writing a book about how dangerous things are. But at least I have this self-awareness to point out that the hucksters are playing this game with us.
Saddest thing about what happened to Altman was they booted him and they brought him back 2 days later. That was the scariest. And then some of the people quit because they didn't like what they were doing because it was evil. But what was the deal with that? You mentioned it, he's gone and then he
I
comes
think it was,
right back.
I think everything is highly calculated. I think these internal dramas and court, palace intrigue is all to increase valuation in some way or another. And I also think the other guys, another guy whose name I can't remember. Starts with Stewie something.
Yeah.
Wanted to go off and make his own company. These guys should all have the same name, or maybe just numbers.
Or you said uniforms and badges.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Um, then wouldn't have to worry about their names all the time because they're in some extent they're playing the same role. Some are better than others. Do you know it's interesting? Demis Hassabis, from who created OpenAI, he was a chess prodigy. He created it with a guy named Shane Legg. And I only remember I remember Shane Legg because he's written a lot of good papers that I read. But he also came up with 100 definitions for intelligence, which was really useful to me. And he co-founded OpenAI with Demis Hassabis. And just like 8 years ago, Demis Hassabis came out and said, I'm really worried that when we approach the intelligence explosion, that the big tech companies will not get in line and do it gradually. They'll all rush ahead to be first, and we'll run into the intelligence explosion. AI will outstrip our intelligence, by a factor of 1,000, and we'll lose. We'll be destroyed. I'm worried that they won't have the presence of mind and the sense to slow down. Well, now here's the Misasabas doing the exact same thing. He's gone from being this guy saying, "Hey," the only sober man in the room, to being, the guy saying, let's go out and get more beer. Um, I don't quite understand his motivations. He seemed like a really grounded, moral guy. But it's something, it reminds me of something that I've got in the book, a quotation from Jan Tallinn, who's a really, really great behind the scenes guy. He's not behind the scenes so much anymore, but he's a philanthropist who's given a lot. First, he was a programmer. He created
Right.
Kazaa and Skype, or co-created. But he said the biggest incongruity in what's happening right now is there's a handful of people who hold the fate of the earth in their hands. There's a small number of people who hold the fate of the earth in their hands. But the vast majority of people don't even know this is happening.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I wrote The Intelligence Explosions. It's also why I wrote Our Final Invention. I wanted to write a kind of a primer on this flame machine we're about to walk into. And everything I wrote in 2013 is true now. In fact, Great Britain just re-released Our Final Invention with a new introduction
Yeah.
because
So
it was still pretty spot on. Um, I wanted to get a little up-to-date thing kind of right on the precipice of the intelligence explosion, because that's where I think we are. I
you
think
know, it's when you in the prologue when you don't really hedge your bets because you don't really think it's going to happen, but you say you're going to do what you can to pass the hope on to someone else who might actually and modestly do better than you. And Yalin is the guy who you seem to be is your hero with regard to this.
yeah. Yeah, because you know what he's done? He's taken the millions he made, or billions, I don't know. I can't tell a billionaire from a millionaire. I'm stuck down here with the thousandaires, which isn't a term you hear much. Uh,
Yeah.
he funded a lot of MIRI, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, which for years did very good work trying to correct the alignment problem. That is, in short, make friendly AI. They failed, and they said they failed. The two leaders just came out with a book about this very subject, AI risk. Nate Soares and Eliezer Yudkowsky, which is in competition with my book. I highly recommend it. I haven't read it, so I can't recommend it yet, but I will read it. Um, but Jan Tallinn gave a lot to them. He gave a lot to Max Tegmark, the genius.
Yeah.
Really, I learned about him through the multiverse. He came up with the whole multiverse concept.
Yes, his fiction is amazing. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
Genius.
I've had a couple of really good conversations with him.
Really?
Um, and I got, I got him to read the book. I got him to blurb.
Cool.
I interviewed him for it. Uh, But he started a group called the Future of Life Institute. And Jan Tallinn contributed generously to that, to get that started. He also got the Future of Humanities. He contributes to the Future of Humanities Institute and also another one. One's at Oxford, one's at Cambridge. And he's just been trying to save mankind by investing in AI risk organizations. And he has good things to say. And the biggest good thing he had to say was, yeah, he's really worried, and he thinks it's a giant injustice that a handful of people have the fate of the world in their hands. I've said that again. Uh,
Yeah.
and and nobody knows about this problem, or very few people, a fraction of people know about this problem. And nobody's out there, well, I've tried to write books that are not easy to read, but easy for anyone in high school to read, or at least readable by anyone in high school. And they might have to look some words up. Uh, the first rash of AI books were just impossible to read. And most scientists, don't throw books at me, you scientists, do not write good books. They're used to writing academic papers, which I think on average, every academic paper is read by 4 people. They're just not great writers. So they need someone to interpret their science. And I was happy to take that role, especially when it came to AI risk.
What do you do now? Well, you could start with Musk and Grok and how he's tailoring it and what he said. Well, I'm not going to talk about, okay, the political situation in the United States today. That adds fuel to the fire, especially when
The elephant in the room. Yeah.
yeah, when you add that and deep fake and the fact that when you read something, you have literally no idea whether it's true or not. Not that you really ever did anyway. But if you add the political situation to what we're talking about, I think it's more of a harbinger of doom than anything. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, no. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. I think, and I'm just here speaking for myself. I think I am growing close to the conclusion that the assassination against Trump when he got nicked on the ear was a fake. It just, you know, he comes out with the right words, fight, fight, fight. When Reagan got shot, if you remember when he got shot at the Hilton in Washington, the protocol for the Secret Service was to surround him with their bodies. You couldn't see Reagan. The second after he was shot, you could not see him because they had surrounded him with their bodies and pushed him into a limo. When Trump got shot, he had like a talking moment. You know, the Secret Service was told lay off, and then he yelled fight, 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 like George Washington. Uh, it looked like bullshit to me. I'm waiting for the trial because I just think there's just, how do you get shot in the ear and then, an hour later you're giving a talk without a bandage on your ear?
I, I love the shape of the bandage. It just that 2x4, that you would use for a cut.
Yeah,
And then people would wear it to emulate it. Oh God, we can't do this. You're gonna get in trouble if you do it. I'm gonna get in trouble too. We can't
I
do this.
can't get in, I can get in trouble, but it's not like people will not buy my book because I'm skeptical of Trump's veracity.
Well, one thing you did say, and it's very true, and I find it every day because I quiz everybody. No one knows what the hell is happening. It's just you and me. I mean, half the people I know don't even know what ChatGPT is. Another
Yeah.
30% say they won't use it because for whatever weird reason they give. And then the other ones say, well, it's going to be benevolent and it will work out and it can't possibly outstrip humanity. And then what do you got? You got us and another 3%, 5% max.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is the incongruity Jan Tallinn talks about. Only a few of us know about it, and it's like it's our secret club. But who wants to be in this secret club? I wrote a book about suicide for this sort of the same reason.
Should have mentioned it.
Yeah, well, I don't have a copy of the Wave at hand, uh, but I wrote a book about suicide because nobody knows about it. I mean, they know it happens. and 1 in 6 people is touched by suicide. But nobody knows anything about the sort of epidemiology of suicide. They don't know what causes it, how to stop it. I interviewed a lot of people who'd survived suicide. I interviewed people on the uh, Flathead Reservation who had a suicide cluster not long ago of 20 people in a year. And I talked to neuroscientists about the neuroscience of suicide to try to do what I'm trying to do with AI, and that's get the stigma away and get a conversation started. People hear AI and they just go, "Oh, that's one of those academic topics I don't want to know about." But it's
Well, you know,
scary.
I always ask authors, what do you expect the reader to take away from this book? And that's where you are, is you want to inform. And hopefully someone loves the cover and they pick it up and they go, wow, this is really, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, and inform, but also, you know, we have to have regulation. We're like, they're going to look back on us like, the pilgrims drinking out of pewter cups. We're developing this AI as fast as we can. Uh, it's going to destroy us if we don't put some brakes on it and some regulation. But what I hope this does is people read it and get alarmed and call up their congressman or go to a march and say we don't trust AI. We don't trust the tech
But the
brothers.
politicians aren't smart enough. You know, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and AOC
I
have no
know.
idea what this is. They have no idea how would you, okay, what would be your regimen for the initiation of a salient and cogent and effective regulation process? Tell me that.
Well, well, the UK has one. I don't know the exact nuts and bolts of it, but you can't build models without inspection. And I've been saying this for a long time. We need an IAEA that's like that's for AI. The IAEA can look down silos and look in nuclear refineries and see what's going on, make sure that you're telling the truth. You could have a little SWAT team of AI experts to go into places and say, show me what you got, and face big, big fines and lots of bad publicity if you clam up, if you don't show us what you've got.
Yeah, but you say how
So,
Sam Altman tells the EU and the UK, hey, okay, if you want to regulate us and we don't like it, we'll just take our bat and ball and we'll go home.
yeah.
And that's a very effective threat.
Well, although A, I don't think he will, and B, uh, there's a tragic story where when he was in front of Congress saying, "Oh, please don't regulate us. No, please regulate us. We keep on the regulation. More regulation, please." When he was doing that, he had his minions were in the UK saying, "If you regulate us, we're going to take our ball and go home." He's such a hypocrite. Either that or the reporting about him is so hypocritical. Um, he's like a poker player who's holding his cards backwards. He's showing his opponents his cards all the time. Uh,
There's never been an inventor, if you will, like Thomas Edison didn't say, hey, all you guys that make candles, you're not going to be in business anymore because I'm making these light bulbs that are going to put you out of business. No one does that. If you're innovating, you don't say what I'm doing is going to destroy not only others, but it's going to destroy the entire planet. You don't predict that. It's silly.
yeah, yeah. Well, he predicts it again in order to increase the
Yeah, and it does.
anticipation of danger and the evaluation of the companies, because these investors think that you only bring out something like we need regulation when you're about to bring out a really powerful, scary product. And that's what they want to get behind, a really powerful product. So that's just a valuation pumping technique.
If we're gonna change in a different direction now, one of the things you
Yeah.
talk, and I mentioned it early on, is hallucinations. And you talk about hallucinations first. You talk about how we anthropomorphize all these things, which is what we do with everything, whether
Yeah.
it's a dog. Um, but then later on, you kind of say there is hallucination. and I felt like, okay, which are you saying? Maybe I misinterpreted it.
And my memory is not clear on that, but
I could be wrong.
well, you could be right, and I could have forgotten. A hallucination is just a phenomenon that we don't really know about until it happens. It's basically just mistakes.
Right.
The thing is, I've got a quotation that I wish I could find from one of the co-writers of AI: A Modern Approach, and he said, "We don't know anything about what's going on inside generative AI. We know nothing. We know the input. It's a black box definition. We don't know it, and we're giving it credit cards, and we're giving it bank accounts, and we're giving it every means it needs in order to take over the world." That's what he says. But we don't know what's going on inside. So we're throwing this technology. It's like we're at Los Alamos, and you know people are wandering around and go, "We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happening in there, but we're going to drop it on Japan." Uh, that's what's happening with generative AI. We don't know what's happening inside. They have there's a very specific branch of science called mechanistic engineering that's about trying to detect what's going on inside the multi layers of algorithms in a deep neural net that is generative AI, and try to define what just somewhat part. Like if you take apart the word ball and you throw it in, you feed it, you train some generative AI on it, it is scattered around just that ball. It's not in one place. It's scattered around all over this like galaxy of space in these algorithms. And then when it needs to be put back together for some reason, it's the AI, the algorithm, the algorithms, the model is able to find it and put it back together. And we don't know how it does it. We don't know how it does it. Mechanistic interpretability is what I'm trying to say. That's the science of figuring it out. And the guys that are doing it, they're like monks. One quit a big job on Wall Street to go into this low-paying monkhood of mechanistic interpretability. And it's like being the people that stand at the temple in Jerusalem and say when, when God is speaking, when the priests, uh, there's nobody else that interfaces with the models at this level. And they're not even very good at it.
But if you're talking about monks, when they were illuminating manuscripts, that illumination to them was their communication with God too. It really was.
Yeah. Well, there's, you know, the the priests in the temple are probably a lot like the medieval monks who wrote the illuminated manuscripts.
Yeah.
There's all this communion with God going on.
It's funny when you talk about Good, who's obviously one of your heroes, and you talk
Yeah.
about the perceptron, you talk about a plane rather than a solid, but you talk about the creation of one neuron, which I found fascinating. And it's like, okay, we don't understand now, but that's what would have that. I don't know how to, it's recursive. That was like the beginning. There was one neuron, and you should be able to follow that track, but we can't.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, then that's the thing. We should be able to track it from where it's learned, where it's input, where it's part of the training data, all the way through the mechanism, the model of generative AI when it gets a prompt out the other side. There are all these sort of semi-religious connotations. Like a prompt is nothing more than an incantation. You give it a prompt like what's the king of all dog breeds? Well, of course, it's German Shepherd. That takes a while for that to kind of have one over here. Uh,
Apparently, it's the golden doodle because that's all people have now.
Golden doodles they're gonna have some emergent property like vampires. Suddenly, all golden doodles will turn to vampires, and we'll be sorry we messed around with
Yeah,
genetics.
same thing.
Um, yeah,
Oh,
golden doodles make me laugh. It's like pretty soon we'll have like we'll blend 5-year-olds with dogs, and we'll have these perfect 5-year-old that are dogs that never grow up. But that's
Yeah.
kind of a great age for little boys.
There's a lot to be said about goofiness. And like with Arthur C. Clarke, the reason he talked like a child is because he had the sense of wonder.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just all it is wonder. I wake up every morning and I go, what the hell is this? And I think as long as you can do that, I think, well, you're okay. Because that's the first thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if I had to maximize one of my two or three qualities or virtues, it would be curiosity. Curiosity will tell, it's like the parable of the guy crawling out of the well, and he sees a rose blooming on the side, and he stops to look at it. Although his life is, seconds from disaster, but he stops to look at the rose because he's curious about how it came to grow there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. I hate to be so darn fatalistic about it, but I think we're looking at the rose on the side of the wall as we climb towards the sun.
Well, the thing is, you want to be sadder but wiser. Ignorance is bliss. If you want to have faith in Christianity, sure. I wish I had a personal savior. It's like having your own valet. It would be really nice, but I can't do it. And that's the other thing. It's like Groucho said,
Yeah.
I would never belong to a club that would allow me to join. I wouldn't be I, I wouldn't be in a country club because that means I stand around talking about mutual funds, wearing white shoes, and talking about money and golf. What kind of weird life is that?
I'm with you. It's like I would play a lot of golf if I had that many days to throw away. I mean, it takes like a day for me to play 18 holes.
Yeah.
And I could talk about stocks, but I'd know as much when I finish as when I started. I mean, I wouldn't absorb it. You know, that's why I'm not, rich and playing golf.
What's your passion about this? The same passion I have, but what is the passion derived from? You're passionate about it since
Yeah.
2013 and before.
Well, the same reason I'm passionate about suicide is because lives can be saved. I like this planet. I like the thought that my children have a future. I have two children. One just went to college. Uh, I want them to have a adolescence, adulthood, and I want them to grow up to be old. And this is the only tool I have. This is the only thing I can do. I can make films and I can write books. And I can be passionate. I can, I like giving talks because I can make eye-to-eye contact with people and and be passionate about it. I don't know why, particularly this. A, it's about saving people, and B, there's something about the fact that this science is profound. It's just profound because I don't think a lot of the quants really know. Like they know some level of it, and then I know some level of it, and then dumber people than me know some level of it, and all of us together are trying to make sense of it. But what we're really doing is an exegesis about the nature of humanity. We're really probing the nature of our own minds because that's the litmus test. We want to create ourselves. We want to be godlike. We want to be the book of Genesis. Um,
Well, the thing about it is that you say people that are dumber than you, and we're both intelligent. You're looking at this empirically, pragmatically, analytically, which is the right way to proceed. And so you and I both conclude that you're correct because it seems to us that there isn't any other alternative. So, not to be morbid, but I have 4 kids and 5 grandkids.
wow.
And so, what we both have, your prologue last sentence pretty much says it in a nutshell. So, then what does that mean for our progeny and their progeny? What does that
Uh,
mean?
I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, the dark heart of all this I come to again and again. When I go to New York and I talk to the smart people in New York, and then I go to the tech and I talk to the boosters in California. The smart people in New York are much more fatalistic. They think they're pretty sure we're going to die. And I like talking to them, not because I want to die, but because I don't want the diluted truth. I don't want Elon Musk's version. I sure as hell don't want our president's version. His version is like, a lot of marbles and a Big Mac. Um, I want good hard-nosed New York skeptics who say, no, we're screwed. And that's why I want this one guy is one of my heroes is this mechanistic interpretability guy who left a high-paying job in order to try to understand what's going on inside these generative AI so that he can make it safe.
Well, why don't you just do that instead?
Because I'm not smart enough.
Right.
I can't do, I'm not very good at math.
I
Uh,
mean,
I'm not good enough at math. What I can do, I mean, I'm not good enough at math. I can try and interpret what they're doing for a lay audience. I mean, that's what I do with documentary is I take a very complex subject and I make a film about it. Um,
you know why you do it? You know why you're able to do it? Because you're like me. You don't understand math that well, but you have an intuitive understanding. That's where it gets you.
yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think I know more about math than I let on. Uh, I know more about programming than I let on because I used to do some programming. Um, but I don't know. I'm comfortable as there's such a word as interlocutor, as the person who speaks between two groups.
Right.
And I feel like I've got a foot in both camps, so I can talk to both.
Yeah, I mean, the Socratic method led to a lot of knowledge that we have, and all he's doing is asking rhetorical questions.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's what I think that's what authors do
yeah.
a lot of the time.
I think that's what you did in the book. But not to beat a dead horse, you have two horsemen of the apocalypse for your epigraphs, and you're the third. And I can't get away from that. I can't get away from that last line. And I don't know if you've painted yourself I don't know whether you've painted yourself into a corner with that last line in the prologue.
And you're referring again to I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm referring exactly to that.
Well,
That's
I
that's
don't
why I
think.
kept reading.
Well, I put it there at the beginning to keep people reading, and also because I believe it. I mean, it's like cocking a gun in the first act, you know.
You also call us lemmings too.
What?
I think you called us lemmings.
No, that was I.J. Good.
Oh, right. Yes,
He
correct.
said we're
Well,
going to
yeah.
run like lemmings over the cliff. And it was really fascinating evolution of his life, which is the same one I had. I went into AI being enamored of Ray Kurzweil, who I've interviewed twice, who I'm still enamored of.
Oh,
And I spent 3 hours in his lab with him, and I was making a film about the book and movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, and this is why I was able to go to Sri Lanka and interview Arthur C. Clarke. But as soon as I got as soon as I pushed that book and they took it, that book and movie, I thought, I'm going to get to interview Ray Kurzweil. And that was like the first call I made. And I spent 3 blissful hours talking to him.
it's amazing.
Yeah, it was just amazing. And his mind was sort of my introduction to geniuses. Uh, to be soon to be followed up by Arthur C. Clarke and and Rodney Brooks.
Well, the other guy you name, who maybe you've spoken to, is Marvin Minsky, and we haven't talked about him.
I
Because
didn't interview him, but I've spoken to him.
really,
Yeah,
how does he fit into?
before he died.
He was like a prophet.
He was, but he did. I got to be I got to admire Frank Rosenblatt a lot.
Yeah, and good.
Rosenblatt invented the perceptron. Minsky and another guy wrote a book saying the neural nets will never go anywhere. And Roger Rosen, and he was a friend of Rosenblatt's. He wrote this book. He knew how influential he was. He just won the Turing Award, and he totally pulled all the funding out from under Rosenblatt. And Rosenblatt started like injecting animals with other animals' DNA to see if he could make them smarter. He gave up on computing entirely, and then he drowned.
Yeah,
Uh, but he had the key. He invented the first. There were people that made neural nets before him, but they're so obscure and their work is so undocumented that I couldn't find out much about them. I think they're Polish. But he was the first guy to put one big perceptron together in a room. It was huge, and it did what he said it would do.
It's interesting, not the suicide aspect of it. Well, yeah, Turing. It's interesting how many tragic figures are in the book that I never thought about in that context, not by their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Turing killed himself because he lost his security clearance
It's gay.
because he was caught in a gay episode, a burglar. A former lover broke into his house. He called the cops. They put two and two together and said, "You're gay." And they said, you can either be imprisoned or you can be chemically castrated, which means they inject you with something like progesterone. And he started doing that, and then he said, "Screw it," and he killed himself. Uh, and the world did not know then because everything he had done at Bletchley Park was secret for another 20 years. The world didn't know what he'd done, and they treated him like shit.
like like Oppenheimer, the same thing. Yeah, because people are dumb. People are really dumb and mean spirited.
Yeah, well, they like, yeah. And I.J. Good was a good friend of, uh,
Turing.
I'll tell you a funny, here's a lighthearted moment, and it's actually in our final invention. But Turing only came back to the UK once more after he left. And I think he didn't come back because he was so pissed off about what happened to Turing. I never had a chance to ask him that. But I.J. Good only went back to UK one more time. Um, Turing was a world-class runner. He was almost in the 1933 or 4 Olympics, but he had
Oh,
an ankle injury. He was really good. I'm not sure if he was a marathon man, if they had marathons, but I know he was like a 10 miler, 10K, and he was a champion. So he taught I.J. Good the game of Go, the Asian game of Go. And I.J. Good taught him chess because Good was the second best chess player in England. He was recruited by Ted Williams, I think, who was the first good best chess player in England. So anyway, Turing came up with this game of chess where you make a move and then you have to run all the way around his house and garden and come back. And if your opponent hasn't have made a move by the time you get back. So here's you clumping along and he's got to make whatever move is on his mind. Then he takes off and you have to make a move by the time he gets back. So of course, this rewards good runners. And it's a severe disadvantage to bad runners. And I.J. Good was about as spindly little guy as you
yeah,
can imagine.
yeah.
He was not a world-class runner.
Looks like Walter Mitty.
No, but I'd love to have, to film one of their games, from overhead. It would have been like this great sprinter going around the track, and then this small man stumbling.
The interesting thing about chess and Go, and it reminded me of what you said in the book, is that seeing 2 to 3 moves ahead is not enough, and
No.
most people only see 2 to 3 moves ahead, and that's not nearly enough. We can't see. Oh, shit, we have to see past the chessboard now.
Yeah. Well, when I started learning a little bit about pattern recognition, I learned a little bit about chess. And grandmasters just look at the board and they know what's available to them in an intuitive sense because they've like a computer, they've ingested so many moves and so many board positions. So they do it intuitively. But what they're really doing is pattern recognition.
Right.
Um, Go masters work the same way because there are, it's said, and I don't understand this, but it's said that there are more board positions than there are atoms in the known universe, which I don't grasp that, but they say it's true.
Yeah, it's like the king and his not magician, but anyway, the one who said, he said,
Right.
give all the grains of rice, put 1 grain on the first, there's 64
Yeah.
stars, and then it's more rice than ever existed in the universe. It's kind of like that.
Yes, he said, don't pay me in gold, pay me in rice. And the king said, sure. And then there was, double it every time.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you really think I think we are in an arithmetical progression, 1, 2, 4, 8, 6, all the way up to 156, and then forever?
I think we're in a exponential advancement of, we're in Moore's law, but a different version. Moore's law has changed. It's the traditional Moore's law has dropped out, but a lot of other tools have been invented to accelerate Moore's law. And as Ray Kurzweil says, it's like we have a brain that's used to watching an impala cross the savannah and then throwing a spear over here to catch it. Well, it's no longer over here, and now it's over there. We don't think exponentially.
No.
But right now, people are starting to feel it, and we are in the intelligence explosion. People are starting to feel it. It's the way these LLMs drop out of the sky like fruit. One day we get one day somebody else drops another, one day somebody else drops another, then they drop ChatGPT 5 and then say, oh, sorry, it's such a screw up. I don't know how we got so misaligned, but it's happening right now. It's in five, that's why one of your people ask me, how long do we have? And I always think, well, I feel like we've got 10 years, but that means we have 5.
Yep. I say 2.
Oh God.
But the
See,
thing about, okay,
I gotta
well,
get my kids to a safe
yeah,
state
I
of
know.
mind.
Yeah, then they have to all be together in the first place, or we have to leave. And if you leave, then you leave them behind. And where are you going to go? There is no place to go because the world is small. It used to be big. Now it's tiny. So, but is there any hope that you have that will convince other readers to buy your book besides people like me?
Why would people buy, except for people that already like the subject? Why would they? Well, if you want to know how your future is going to look, if somebody handed you a book and said, this is your future, this is the book. You want to know your future? Read this book. And
Okay.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good motto. That's a good, yeah, actually, that would have been a good subtitle too.
Yeah. Why didn't you think of that in the past and signal me?
Well, I'll do the second best thing, which is I'll come out from behind the counter and say, you need to buy this book. My
It's
daughter really did that.
yeah, it's your future.
Yeah, she forces people to buy books.
Good for her. Good for
Yeah,
her.
good for her. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I knew I would enjoy it beforehand, and I really did enjoy talking to you today. And it's a great book.
I don't think there's any subjects I noted that we didn't cover. Well, thank you, Sam. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care.